I'm Diana Iannarone, and welcome to the second episode of our perception training, Creating the Life You Want. Last time we spoke, we talked about your beliefs and the power your beliefs have in creating your life and the perceptions that you have of those beliefs. And we encouraged you to go back and look at your life, kind of evaluate what beliefs you might have that you were never conscious of. We talked about various ways you can find those beliefs, one being simply looking at your childhood memories. Things that come up, things that are less than positive created your negative beliefs. And of course the happy memories created your positive beliefs. But basically in those negative moments where you had an experience, you want to look at it and go, what might I have decided about life in those moments? And is that belief that still I'm holding on to still serving me well? So that was one thing to consider. The other thing was your self-talk. What words do you say to yourself? Because they are defining you. For yourself, you're creating your reality by the beliefs that you have and the way that you talk to yourself. You know, if you're fat, if you keep saying, I'm so fat, well, you're basically making a prediction. Whether it's true now or not, you're going to now make it true, because everything always has to be congruent. Your thoughts and your inner beliefs and your outer world will be congruent. So if you don't like what's on the outside, you have to start by changing what's on the inside so that you can get to that space where you can recreate things anew. And I know, like, if you feel fat, it's pretty hard to say, I'm slender, I feel wonderful in my body. But that's the only way to get where you want to go, because eventually you will start having the habits of somebody that has that belief, and you will start moving in that direction. So you're never going to solve a problem by focusing on the negative part of that problem. You're instead going to have to move to a more positive view and then just wait for your outer world to catch up and your body to catch up to the beliefs that you have now. The other thing we talked about is living in a box, and we talked about there being 4 walls. The murder-suicide wall was first, and usually that's a fleeting thing. You know, I usually give an example, like when you're in traffic and you're trying to get somewhere and the car in front of you is going 5 miles an hour. Tell me the truth now. What's the first thing you think? You know, murder-suicide comes to mind. But then when you realize you can't get around them, and let's make it good, like you're on your way to a really important meeting, something that really matters greatly to you, and you can't get around, you cannot get around this guy or this woman. So there you are, you're stuck, okay? So you started to go to the geographic wall. There's got to be a way around this. But then when you got stuck, you go to the get sick, go crazy wall. So as I said, it's the murder-suicide wall, then the geographic, and then the get sick, go crazy wall. And I said at that wall is when you start to have health issues, which hopefully and often propels you to go through the top wall, which is the change wall. I wanted to revisit it because I want you to know that as long as you keep skipping the change wall, you keep cycling back around. So eventually that murder-suicide becomes more viable because your get sick, go crazy gets more intense, and then you start moving back over here. So don't skip over that change wall. The change wall is the secret. So you have to change in order to change your life. Aside from beliefs, there's another mechanism that is driving your life, and that is your wounds, okay? The injuries that you have had. Now, they may have been established at the same time as those beliefs were established, and I mentioned in the introduction that many of our beliefs actually began before the age of 7. And we've been just clinging to them, just believing we have to hold on to them. It's our way of life. We just don't understand that we can let go of them. But before you can let go of them, you have to know they're there. And that's what this program is about. I think it's Deepak Chopra. He says it's not hard work, it's conscious work. And that's really what this is. This is about making conscious the things that we do unconsciously. And if you think we're never asleep or unconscious, think about times that you drive somewhere and, you get there and you're talking to somebody and you're like, I don't even remember driving here. I don't even remember driving here. When you have things that are so habitual and so routine for you, your consciousness about them disappears. So to begin to heal, to begin to move past and through where you are now, you have to raise your consciousness. Listen to your mindset of your self-talk. Pay attention, also pay attention to how you're judging others. I always tease that be careful what you judge, because what you judge usually will come back to you at some point and you will have to experience that very thing you judged somebody else for. You know, if you're looking at somebody saying, oh, it's disgusting, he drinks too much, or she eats too much, one day you may find yourself battling that same battle, because the universe has a great sense of humor and it doesn't mind throwing at you that which you think that, you know, you're better than. You know, if you, and also if you have jealousy of of certain things, you know, it can come back to bite you. So it is best to try everything in your power not to judge another. But yet, how often do you yourself feel judged? And that's when we get to our wounds. In an ideal world, you would take nothing personally, because the things that people say and do are more often about them than they are about you. So in a perfect world, you would not feel the need to take it personally. One of my favorite books is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz and Mastery of Love by the same author. And it's life-changing, really. And one of the agreements is don't take anything personal. And it is the most liberating, freeing decision you can make. But what makes us take things personally? It's our wounds. So how do you know what your wounds are? This is so easy. Are you ready? All you have to do is pay attention to when your defenses jump up. All you have to do is pay attention to when your defenses jump up. So, for example, we talked about weight before, so let's use that one again. Let's assume for a minute that I am extremely comfortable at my weight. I have never struggled with weight. I've never thought about my weight. It's just a non-event for me. I'm totally at peace and comfortable. And then let's assume I went to high school with you, which was a long time ago, and I'm in a store, and you come walking the other way, and you say, hey, Diana, how are you? And then you say, boy, you've put on a lot of weight since high school. You look pretty fat. Unarguably, that's a cruel statement to make. But my reaction is about me. What am I going to do now? Well, if I feel defensive, and you know what I mean when I say you feel defensive. You know the feeling. You know the feeling. It's like this sort of tightening and alarm, and you want to go, you know, you don't look so hot yourself. You want to throw out some insult to that person, or you might consider at least doing that, even if it's not your normal modus operandi. The reason is because somebody touched your wound. That's a weak point for you. So when you feel defensive, if you're not conscious, you'll start defending yourself. No, I'm not. I didn't really put on that much weight. It must be these clothes. I work out. I go to the gym twice a week. I really watch what I eat. In fact, I'm moving towards a vegetarian, and all of a sudden you're explaining yourself to a person who just judged you negatively, who when they walk away is still going to judge you negatively. Only now you feel worse, because you not only had to hear that somebody's opinion is that you're fat, you also got the tension inside of you, making it so that you feel exhausted, and you explained yourself. You never have to explain yourself, and you never have to justify. Now, if I was truly comfortable with my weight, as opposed to obviously having a wound there, which would make my defensive reaction come out, if I was truly comfortable, I would say, interesting you think that way. And in my mind, I'd think, that's kind of a crazy thought, because it would have no validity to me if I had no consciousness of it, if I had no bother of it. Even if it's true or false, it's not the matter. It's not the point. It's a matter of how you feel about it. That's what drives everything, how you feel about it. And what's magically impressive is your mind does not know the difference between a truth and a lie. It's really amazing to think that that's true, but I'm going to actually illustrate it. And I think it was Dr. Wayne Dyer. I think I read this in one of his many books. And it's so simple. It's a little experiment. We're going to do it together right now. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to imagine a lemon. For those of you that are analytics, you're saying, where's the lemon? How big is it? How small is it? I don't care. Just imagine a lemon. And I want you to imagine yourself kind of getting closer to inspect this lemon. It's sitting on the counter maybe, and kitchen maybe, and you're going up to it and you're really going to examine it closely. I want you to just really look at it. I want you to notice the pitting in the skin. I want you to actually pick that lemon up. I want you to pick it up. And I want you to notice the texture and the feel of the lemon. Okay, I want you to just imagine this. You can close your eyes. It sometimes makes it easier to get into your imagination. So I want you to imagine you're kind of squeezing it a little bit. You're noticing the texture, the size, the color. And now I'd like you to place it back down on the counter, and I'd like you to slice the lemon just in half. And now I'd like you to smell that lemon. And now I'd like you to bite it. Now, as I mentioned, I've been teaching this for a very long time, and what I know is some of you right now salivated. Yet if I said to you, on command everybody, let's salivate, you wouldn't have been able to do that, because you can't make that reaction, it just is. And the reason why you have that reaction is because you've tasted a lemon before. If you had never tasted a lemon, you wouldn't know to salivate. Your body wouldn't have that response pattern. So I'm here to tell you that you have response patterns, as I'm sure you've heard before, or at least considered before. And the more deep set your patterns are, the bigger your reactions are. And sometimes when someone touches a wound, they touch it a little, but it makes you almost be explosive in your anger. And that means you have lots of repressed emotions about whatever this issue is, or actually in general, you have lots of repressed emotions. So it's really important to get to know yourself, to see what your patterns are, to see where your wounds are. And I mentioned in the last program that journaling is such a key way to do that, because as you're journaling and you're sitting and you're writing down, it forces you to, kind of look at, what am I saying? You'll also begin to see if you have what I call an external locus of control or an internal locus of control. An external locus of control means you're driven by everything outside of you, and you believe that those things outside of you are actually driving your life. You believe your circumstances are just what they are. Sometimes we almost feel like we didn't even have anything to do with it. You had everything to do with it. When we finish with our work together, my hope for you is that you will get an internal locus of control. And I gotta be candid with you, some of this is obviously much better done one-on-one, and that's why I do life coaching, to try and get this resolved for people really pretty quickly. I can't say easily, in the sense that you have to face some things you don't want to face. But when I first became a life coach, I coached most people for 6 months to a year. And now it's, as few as 2 or 3 sessions to as much as maybe 3 months. So it's very different. I've become far more intuitive. And the reason I became far more intuitive is part of what I'm guiding you to, is to start trusting yourself. Start to look inside of yourself. Start to trust that inner knowing that you have. It can lead you tremendously, tremendously change your life. So what we want to be able to do is not only look at our beliefs, not only look at our self-talk, and when we look at our beliefs and our self-talk, we need to be prepared to alter them. And by altering them, we may start saying truths that we actually don't believe right now. Like again, because many people struggle with weight, I use that one a lot. To start saying I'm slender and beautiful when you feel fat and ugly, feels a little like, yeah, whatever. But the more you keep saying I'm slender and beautiful, the more you start to feel it. And the more you start to feel it, the more you start to become it. And then all of a sudden you accept that you are slender and beautiful. And, our society is way too vested in weight anyway. So this is not about where your weight should be or what's right. This is about you defining the way that you want your life to be. We talked about perception, but how powerful are our perceptions? Well, extremely. Anorexia. They believe they're fat. They might die. That's how powerful our perceptions are. And if you just walked up to somebody with anorexia and said, "You're skinny. What's wrong with you? Eat." Are they going to do it? Of course not. Because the only thing that matters is their perception of themselves. So the healing always comes from the inside out. Always. So all the circumstances that exist around you today, I want you to take accountability for them as if you put them there. Now I understand there's freak accidents, things that happen. I mean, of course, there's some things that we could argue might not be in your control. But imagine if you decided that you were responsible for the creation of it, because that would also empower you to be responsible for the change of it. And that's really what life is about is to create the life that you want. And to do so, you have to become conscious of what it is you want. So a couple of things in closing. One is your defense mechanism is your trigger sign that you have a wound. Do not explain, do not justify. Just recognize that if I'm taking this personally, there's something in this for me. Maybe I believe there's this much truth in what that person is saying, or maybe I believe there's a whole lot of truth in what that person is saying. So if somebody's judging my character or judging who I am, and I get really defensive, maybe I need to look. What is it that I'm not quite operating in alignment with my own beliefs right now? There's probably something, okay? So it's about recognizing your defense patterns, recognize when you feel like you want to attack, and know that that's somebody just poking your wound. And the way to make it not feel defensive anymore is to heal the wound. Then when someone says those things, I'll be like, okay, you're entitled to your opinion, but it won't matter anymore. And I talked about, being a marionette and cutting all those strings to freedom. Well, when you're no longer defensive, you've cut a big one. When you no longer judge others, you've cut a big one. When you no longer feel offended when people judge you, doesn't mean you have to keep associating with that person, because if they are judging you, you don't need it. And when I say living free, it really means living free. You have to start somewhere. Journal. See where you are in the box. If you're over here, the get sick, go crazy wall, you're about ready to change. It's like you're being pushed to change. So just go through that change wall. Just start going self-evaluating. Don't look out there, look in here. Every time you're defensive, make a note in your journal. I was really defensive about this. Why? Is there some truth in there? Is there something I could change? And not to convince that person. Don't ever waste your time. What is that expression? Something like, don't try and convince somebody who's, dead set on not believing who you are. It's really, it's not worth it. So hopefully today I gave you a few little gems that you can take with you and begin to implement into your life. And when you become more conscious, you will very quickly learn a great deal about yourself. It is freedom from delusion and entry to reality. I thank you for your time today, for joining me, and stay tuned for more. Thank you. Have a great day.